Good afternoon, everyone. Research Library's webinar on Print Archives Preservation Registry. I'm here with Amy Wood, our Director of Technical Services, who will be speaking in just a moment. My name is Gwen Einat. I'm the Communications Specialist here. I'm the name at the bottom of all your emails. So just have a few housekeeping notes to mention. One is that we have muted you upon login. That's nothing personal. We just have a lot of attendees today, and if everybody isn't muted, sometimes we get some annoying background noise. So you're all muted, but if you do have a question for Amy or about the paper registry, please feel free to submit questions through the online chat, which we will be monitoring throughout the session, and there will be a Q&A at the end. And any technical questions, if you can't hear the audio, then you can't hear me right now, but any sort of technical difficulty like that, again, just submit through the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Amy.
Great. Thanks, Gwen, and good afternoon to everyone, and I'll add my welcome to the webinar. We really appreciate you taking the time to learn about paper. In addition to being the Director of Technical Services here at CRL, I have been involved with the paper database since its beginning. Maybe not one of the driving forces at the beginning, but I've certainly been involved and are part of the team now. So our goal for this webinar is to introduce you or to reacquaint you with the range of information that's available in paper and the various tools or functions that enable you to use the data. And using the data or making the data relevant to the work that you do with your local collections is key to the success of paper and hopefully to the success of your own collection management work. Providing tools and services to its members and affiliate organizations is central to CRL's mission. And the impetus for paper's development came from members expressing a need for better collection management tools, particularly for print archiving. And as we've worked with them and worked with paper, we've come to realize that print archiving doesn't exist in isolation, and there are other factors that we would like to incorporate into paper, and knowing exactly where to go with that really depends on the feedback that you give us and your active participation in paper. So we're really anxious to hear from you as you use or submit data to paper. To that end, what is available to you in paper is information about archiving programs, their associated holdings, a variety of statistics, and the ability for you to either download data or request the data in the form of collection comparison reports. CRL also intends to share information on a regular basis with you that as we analyze the data that we collect in paper and have maybe a larger or sort of an overview of print archiving across the programs, on a regular basis we will share that information with you, most probably at the PAN meetings at the ALA, the PAN forums. So just a little background information. CRL began working with the California Digital Library to develop paper in 2011, and it went live in August 2012. And in the past year, in 2013, we more than doubled the data about titles and holdings that paper includes. So currently the registry includes about 58,000 bibliographic records and their associated holdings from a variety of print archive programs and a large number of institutions. Now there's more information about the programs included in paper than, or I should say each program for which we have information in paper does not have associated holdings, but we hope that someday they will. So there are three groups of information in paper. The directory of programs is the first group that you'll see when you come to paper. It's kind of your landing page. And and as I said, all the programs listed don't have holdings in paper, but I think it's really a valuable service that paper can provide to attempt to have the most comprehensive list of print archiving and shared print programs that we can acquire. And some of this information comes from us just searching. We hear about a new program and we'll go out and look for information for it. And some of the information comes from programs, the representative from programs itself. So we encourage you, if you know about a program or are involved in a program that isn't listed in our directory, to please contact us, and my email will be at the end of all the slides. And my apologies for any program that comes after O. There just wasn't enough room on my screen to do more of a screenshot, to be more inclusive in the screenshot. Under the tabs, there's a second level of navigation. As I said, the programs, even though it's sort of the first group in that second level of navigation is that landing page, but we'll walk through each of the other pages as well. At this point, where you can see the orange arrow that popped up indicates that you can download the program data at this point. So you can either click in to see a single program, the information about a single program, or if you're really interested in doing a comparison of the different programs, it's probably more worth your while just to go ahead and download that information. And that, I think, is one of the most valuable things that paper offers, is that ability to download all of the data in the variety of forms. You'll find throughout paper on the various pages, you'll be able to download the information. It is in a tab-separated values file. And if your browser has a spreadsheet extension, the file will it'll automatically give you a choice to open the file as a spreadsheet or to save the file. But we've had questions in the past where people didn't have that extension on their browser and were a bit confused about how to open up the file. So you can certainly save it and then open it later in your choice of software, or use that spreadsheet extension. So if you do choose to look at a single program detail, this is an example of a page that you would see. And note that, and I just want to note that you can, at this point, you can click to view or download the titles and holdings for this specific program. And we always use, as you noticed on the previous page, we always use that black downward arrow icon to indicate when when a link will take you to a file to download, as opposed to that view archive titles on the left, which will trigger a search of the database itself. So it's just the view is the search, and the other option is to download. So in this program detailed page, some of the programs have so much information, and it's maybe not fluid, but they're actively updating their own information on their web pages, and most of the programs do have some kind of web page. And so we chose to include the data that we think is sort of in flux or might change frequently, rather than try to keep up with updating it in paper. We've just added links so that you can easily go and find the information, the relevant information at those links, and we will ensure that those links are accurate and you actually get to the endpoint that you want. But the other data that's included in this program details page is data that's not likely to change. It's pretty succinct, and it is the type of information you probably would want to, at a glance, look across programs to see, what the retention period, what's a typical retention period for all the different programs that are listed. What are ownership arrangements that people have? So I think that's those are the two different types, and why you again might choose to download versus following a link or looking at an individual program page. And here I'm just indicating again that line for whether or not you want to choose to view or download this information. And if you download at that point in that previous slide, you will just be downloading the information for that individual page. So when we have a download link, it refers specifically to what is on that page, not the overall data in the database. And this slide currently is just the it's a detail of what if you did download the list of details from that first program page that listed multiple programs. So this isn't what you would get for an individual one, but you can see how easily you can compare across the programs in the various points of information. And so moving to the facilities page, it follows much of the same format that the programs did. So now we have a list of facilities that are being used for print archiving or shared print programs. And again, you can choose to download all of the information that would be associated with these facilities. And that's not just the list of facilities as you saw in the other ones. It has all of the detailed information that you would find on the individual page. And this slide shows all of the detail that you will find on the facilities. Now, not all facilities, we are not able to gather all of the information for these facilities, but if we do encourage, if you are operating a facility related to a print archive and don't have this information available on your website, to please share this data with us. We believe that it is very important for other libraries and institutions that are making decisions about their own collection. I think knowing how material is being preserved or how it's being housed for other collections is extremely important. And this page actually is a little bit unusual in the overall paper site, in that it has links to download information at the top and links to download at the bottom. We've been normally we've been very consistent throughout paper of where things are placed, so that you're not confused when you go to a page. The difference between the links at the top and the ones at the bottom are, you can see that this facility is being used by more than one archiving institution. So if you wanted to see all of the titles and associated holdings that were being housed as they're disclosed in paper, you would choose to view or download from those top links. But if you're only interested in the titles or holdings from a single institution, you would download or view from those links at the bottom. And the next sort of subgroup underneath the directory is the information about the archiving institutions. Not a lot of information on here, but it's really key. That OCLC symbol is sort of the glue that holds a lot of these pages together. And the reason for that is that paper was being developed about the same time that OCLC was involved with their shared print pilot project for setting a standard set of metadata for print archiving. for disclosing the print archive holdings, and it was important to those who were developing paper that we stay within the standards that the library community was recommending. You know, we try to be sensitive to the fact that everyone has a great deal of work to do, and we want this to fit seamlessly in with whatever other related work that you are doing. So, I guess one thing to mention is that all the programs do not have not created a new OCLC symbol to go with their shared print holdings. That I think is a local decision, and I think that, and it's not what we end up doing is we end up just using the original OCLC symbol to maintain that link between the program and the archive titles. So the next part of paper is the archive titles themselves, and this is the landing page, I guess, of that side of it, or that database, and you'll find I think a lot of valuable information on this page in terms of how you can search the database and some download instructions as well. So this next slide shows the results of, I just did a keyword search for women, and I think what is important on this page is that you can really see at a glance how many programs and institutions hold any particular title that was retrieved in the search. Now this this search retrieved 127 titles. Obviously, many of them have multiple holdings, so that doesn't. So the 127 in the results doesn't equal the copies being held in the different programs. Just simply the titles that were retrieved. In order to, you certainly have the option to scroll through the title list, or to go ahead and download that list and work with it in a spreadsheet. Now here it lists, at the top it lists the download archive holdings, or it gives you a choice to download the gaps and condition reports. And just, I'll show examples of that later in the presentation, but just to make you aware that if you download the gaps and condition reports, those will not include holdings for libraries that have not disclosed any gaps or condition issues. So really these two reports are meant to work in tandem. Now from this page, if you'd like to see a detail of the holdings for any one particular institution, you would just click on the OCLC symbol for that program and institution, and you will get a holdings detail page. It shows, and I thought this example was a particularly nice one because the materials specified are quite detailed, and the program took the time to indicate explicitly what the missing volumes were in that, and I think it's a really nice example, and you can see the benefit of having all of that data, and without having the program explicitly state what the gaps are, we are not able to work with the gap reports. So in order to really work to get the most out of the gap reports, we do encourage you to include that explicit data about gaps and condition issues. And anyone who is familiar with OCLC's pilot project and the recommendations for the use of the 583 and the metadata standards, I think a quick glance at this page, I'm sure much of it looks very familiar. I think we've successfully mapped that 583, and in certainly much more readable, I think, in this interface than it is in, at least in CRL's local catalog, and I assume everyone else's too. Now this next slide shows, again, it shows the detail from a single institution for that, for a title. But I included this one because this title has multiple condition issues. In the 583, as recommended in the pilot project, all of those condition issues would be placed in the same 583, the same field, but just in separate instances of the subfields L and Z. But to make it more legible and to make it more usable in the gap and condition reports, the paper has broken those out into separate rows. So you can see the last two rows that show holdings have two condition issues, separate condition issues explicitly stated. And if you were to download the condition report, you would see the same thing. In the spreadsheet, you would have two rows, each showing the separate condition information. I think it's much easier to use this way than it is all in the same 583, and I certainly give CDL credit for doing this in the development work that they did. The next important part of paper is the statistics. The statistics pages are the newest feature of paper. These pages just went live in January of this year, and I think you will find that these are quite valuable. And although in the beginning, I think it's interesting, going through the data that is displayed in paper. I think as you begin to download the information, it will become a really valuable source of information for you. The first page is, again, sort of the landing page of the statistics part of paper, shows the title count of the various programs. And I want to emphasize that this is not a total count of the copies. Some of the, in fact, many of the programs hold multiple copies of a single title among their members. So the title, so where it says number of titles, that's exactly what it means. Number of titles, not number of copies held. And all of the numbers that are listed in that number of titles or number of institutions columns, those are actually active links into the paper database. So if you were curious about what the 2,347 titles were for ACERL, if you click on that number, it will retrieve a list of those titles in a similar way that if you had done a keyword search for ACERL or something like that. So you will be able to see immediately what those titles are, and then from there you can see how many copies of each title are held. And the same for the number of institutions. ACERL does have more than 22 institutions involved in its program, but these are the 22 listed there would show you specifically the ones that have contributed to the records that are currently in paper. On the next page shows a breakdown of statistics for LC class, and these statistics are ones that CRL is most interested in doing further work with. I think this type of data will be extremely valuable to you, and I think we've just really sort of scratched the surface of what we can do with this information. One impediment, I guess, to doing more work with this is that the LC class is not always included in the records, and it certainly makes it much more difficult when the data in records is not complete. So this is just another plug for if you're investing your time in working with this material and this data. It is really a benefit to the whole community, I think, if you can add some additional time to include information like LC class or subject headings that will really, I think, benefit us all as we are beginning to compare across programs, or we think about what are the best types of partnerships. If they are subject-based, what are the best partnerships we can find in the community? The next slide shows statistics by year, and these are the ones. The year is taken from when the commitment was made to retain the material, not when it was contributed to paper. I've doctored this slide, so if you actually look at this slide or look at the screen on the website, you'll see the commitment to retaining some of these titles goes back into the early 1990s. It just we'll have a single title for each of the early years in the 90s, and I thought it was more valuable for you to see what information or how many titles have recently been committed for print archiving. And again, just these are all of these numbers, number of titles, institutions, programs, those are all links into the database, and we'll retrieve a list of titles or institutions that for which commitments were made in any of these years. So the only thing that's not a link is the actual year itself. And this next page shows the validation level, and I think this is a big topic of concern for the community. How much effort is needed for this for validating, for ensuring that we really understand what the condition is for this material, or where the gaps are in this material. And I think that is really a question that has yet to be answered. I think, we're hoping that information like this, rather than to seem critical on one program or another, that one is validating at this, another one's validating at that this is just information that we can use to help that conversation. But what level of effort is worth the gain of And this last slide from the statistics pages shows, now here's where we actually show the number of copies. We've gotten away from the title level, and shows the number of copies. And again, we're hoping that this information will help that conversation about how many copies are ideal to have, and when have we sort of maxed out our effort on any single title. So I have some detail on that one title that has 9 holding libraries. And this next slide shows, so you can see there are actually 7 print copies retained, or 7 copies retained in the different print archiving programs. And then we also have CLOCKSS and Portico, who are archiving the digital version of this. And what is really valuable, I think, is if you are considering, should I be the 8th print archive that holds this title, is if you go ahead and download the information about this title, you can quickly compare the exact holdings that each of the each of the programs has, and you can see there's quite a there's quite a bit of overlap, particularly in the middle, but you can see that towards the beginning and end, particularly at the end of the run, there are far fewer than 7 holding programs. So this is, I think, extremely valuable. It's really not enough to say, that there are 7 copies out there, because as you can see from the holdings, there aren't 7 copies of volume 141. And this next slide is just the detail from the download of the gap and condition issues for an individual title. I realize it's kind of hard to read, and of course if you went ahead and downloaded it, you can spread out the spreadsheet as far as you like to better read the information that's in there. But again, that's the information that really helps you decide how many copies do we need of that actual issue versus how many are actually held. Now, in terms of cross-program analysis, I think that is where paper can be extremely valuable in this cross-program analysis. I think most of the time, I think members are going to be concerned with comparing their local collection with either the entire paper database or just particular programs in that are disclosing information in paper, and I think for good reason. You may have a program that is very similar in its design to another particular program, and it's far more worth your while just to target a comparison in that one other program than it is across the board. So all of CRL members and associated partners and contributors to paper can request collection comparison reports. And I've just outlined sort of the steps that you need to do to get that started. Just go ahead and contact me and let me know that you're interested in a comparison report. And at a minimum, we need from you ISSN or OCLC numbers and the titles. We really do need sort of that check of an ID number and a title, just to ensure that we're giving you back the information that you really want, and we haven't gotten the numbers mixed up or anything. But any additional information that you want included in that report, you can also send. And since you are getting a list of all of the holdings and any gaps that have been listed, I think it's really worth your while. We really recommend that if you can, you include your local holdings information in there so that it's all together. We have had some members who have used the service, and while they didn't include their local holdings information, what they did was to once they downloaded the information, they included it in other tools that they had developed locally, or one member was using it with Ithaca's What to Withdraw tool. So I think there's really no end of what you can do with this information, and I think the way you can download it from paper is more generic enough that you can really use it in a wide variety of local tools, and if you do, we would love to hear about the successes that you've had, and perhaps they can influence some of the further development of paper. And the other sort of cross-program analysis that we are focused on is information that we can derive from the data that we've ingested into paper, but aren't necessarily put together just from a quick download. I think this is a valuable service that we think we can provide to you, so that everyone out there doesn't have to do sort of a state of the print archiving world. CRL intends to provide that information on a regular basis. So here's just a quick look at what, if you do request a collection comparison report, what the format, what it would look like when you retrieved it. So I think you can see just from all of the downloadable reports that PAPR has, we've tried to stay very standard, and again, that is a credit, I think, to the CDL development team. We've just been very consistent in the format of the reports to make things easier for you in using that data. And I included this particular example because it did show that there were 4 programs included in PAPR that held this title, Africa, and so you get a sense of, at least from the first line, what it would look like if just a single program holds the material, and what the results would look like if there were multiple programs. So in terms of the data that CRL would like to put together for you, we've done a little initial work. I think there's a lot more that we have to do, but I think it was a good step forward, and just to see what we could put together in sort of a first pass. In doing that, as you'll see in the next slides, the data in the next slides, I eliminated the information about CLOCKSS and Portico's holdings. I wanted to focus on what was being held in print. And I also, pulled apart. This is the list of programs and titles as you would see in PAPR, but I actually, in showing the next slides and in analyzing the data, I actually pulled apart sort of the overlap. West has overlap with the UCL shared print and the MedPrint and some of the other programs, and I just wanted to pull out that duplication, so we were working with a count of the copies that are being held. So this next slide just shows an overview of the print archiving by program as it's disclosed in PAPR. So it's just by percentages, where the big and smaller programs are in the overview. And this next slide just shows the distribution of the print archiving that has been done by LC class. And for those sharp-eyed out there, there's an error in this slide, and I left it in once I saw it because I thought it really illustrated how bad data really will follow you and disrupt the good data. So when we actually go to post these slides, I'll take that out. But I think you probably know W isn't a part of the LC classification, but that came from when there are a great number of titles that were contributed to PAPR that do not have LC class or subject headings added to them, and so we made an attempt to go to the local the data sources or the local catalogs to sort of tease out that information. And there was and so that W cropped in because of local rules about whatever that they were doing, where that was going to help them find the material, I suppose, locally. But anyway, so I just left it in there just to illustrate as we go through these slides. It's still there in every one. That bad data just keeps following you around. So This next slide shows both the same data that you saw on the previous slide in the blue, and in the red I have removed the Linda Hall Library holdings. Linda Hall is an independent research library devoted to science, engineering, and technology, and they are a trusted partner of CRL's. We have been working with them for a couple of years now to develop a partnership where our CRL's members have access to Linda Hall's excellent collection, and they are really committed to preserving and making their collection accessible, which is why we felt it was extremely important to add them to paper. So while they may not be sort of an official print archive program, they really have set a high bar in terms of preserving and making accessible their data. But you can see, because they are devoted to science, engineering, technology, they really skew the data about what has been archived in those areas. So it's still, you can see in the red, it's still science and technology is still, they're still among the greatest number that are being archived, but some of the other groups sort of take the lead at that point. And the next slide, I did the same sort of LC distribution for West. They're certainly the largest and maybe the most mature of the print archiving programs, and I thought it would be valuable to see what their distribution, and share with you what their distribution of archiving. But I think this kind of information is important for each of the programs. We'll get to that. The next slide is takes a little while. It's a little shocking to look at, but I think it is extremely helpful in just viewing. If you think of each LC class group and think of it as an entirety, so rather than comparing it to another class group, who among the print archiving programs holds the most? And as I was looking at this, what's really struck me was Copal's holdings, because they're quite even across a large part of the LC class numbers or letters, and are not unlike the CRL's JSTOR. So I think there's probably a better way to display this data, and we'll certainly work on that. But I think it really does illustrate some interesting trends in the print archiving. So in terms of CRL's future work, this year CRL was awarded an Andrew W. Mellon Foundation Award. It's to fund the expansion of our analysis and planning of print archiving and digitization of print journals and newspapers. So it's a 2-year project, and we have scheduled 2 forums to share that data with the community. The one related to journals will be in June 2015. And there's more information about that award or the project, related project, on our website, and the link there is at the bottom. And so that come to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your interest, and we have time. We have some time for questions, and we did get quite a few questions submitted before the presentation. And as I was looking at them, I'm hoping that people felt that many of them were covered, or that whoever submitted the questions had had answers that were satisfying. And in terms of, I guess there was one question about how far have we come and where do we go from here? I think that's a great question. I think that CRL has a lot of work to do with that, but I think that that last group of slides where, we have been attempting to sort of tease out that data across program archiving from a couple of different angles. I hope that really will illuminate the way that we should begin to go with print archiving. One related question that came up, I showed some of these slides at the Midwinter ALA PAN Forum. One question that came up is whether or not the print archiving, that distribution across the LC class also mirrors just general publication history across LC class. And I thought that was a great question, and one that we intend to follow up on, just haven't. But I think that will go a long way to answering that question about where do we go from here.
Hold on.
A particular, let's see, we have a question. Please say again why a particular program has a number of libraries participating, only show 2 libraries in paper. Well, I would have to, I'm happy to follow up with this offline, because I should of course look at the data itself and who all of the participants of GWILA are. But the information in paper related to the actual institutions should show just the institutions that are archiving those titles. So any program could have many participants, but not all of them have contributed data to paper. Perhaps those are the ones that were not chosen to be the archive holders. I'm happy to look at the particular GWILA data and get back to you offline with a more definite answer. But certainly, if there is any data in here that you think is not accurate, we definitely want to hear about that, because it's in everyone's best interest that we have accurate data in paper.
Do you want me to read those, Amy? Do you want me to read the other ones up there?
Sure.
Okay. So you don't have to do everything. Hi everyone, it's Gwen again. I'm going to field some questions for Amy. Thank you for submitting through the online chat. That's great. We have a question. What about libraries that use NLM classification instead of LC?
I think that's a great question, and we have been exploring ways that we can map that classification to the LC. So I think we had thought about it in terms of mapping from NLM to LC and then just displaying the data in LC class. But if, what maybe is what implied in your question is, if it's just as important to see that distribution for NLM classification, we should think about that, and I would welcome you to contact me offline about that.
Another one reads, is there a way to do a comparison report to determine what is available online, including years, volumes available for deaccessioning decisions or local digitizing decisions? Pardon me.
So if there's a way to compare what is online, I think we would have to, there is, if off the top of my head, I think the way you would have to supply us with that data of what is online. So if you had that data, that could be part of what you are submitting to paper. So for example, if we know what JSTOR has digitized, and you could certainly provide us with a list of ISSNs and accompanying holdings that, or volumes and issues that JSTOR has digitized, and we would be able to give you back a collection comparison report of where the overlap was between what JSTOR has digitized and what is in paper. But the key there, I think, at this point is that you would have to supply that information about what has been digitized to us for that comparison. Now, we have Portico and CLOCKSS in there now, and if you think that there are some other really valuable sources of digital holdings or archiving, we should talk about whether or not we can include that in paper, and that may make those kind of comparisons easier in the future.
We do have a few more minutes, and it's great. People are really starting to submit questions, so we're going to encourage that for the next few minutes. We have one about how can programs and libraries that are not currently sending archive titles be encouraged to participate? What is CRL doing to encourage or expedite submissions?
CRL actually has been working a great deal in trying to help libraries submit data to paper. And it's obviously really time consuming, which is why the individual libraries aren't able to do it themselves. So it's certainly not fast work for us. But I think the most important thing that we have invested an enormous amount of time and effort into normalizing holdings data to try to create a consistent standard form or expression of the holdings data. We have used spreadsheets that have been submitted to paper or to us to be for the holdings to be included into paper, and we've transformed that data from the spreadsheet into sort of a MARC-based form with the 583s, so that information can be submitted to paper. Actually, that is how those 2,300 titles from ASRL came to be ingested into paper. They were exported in a spreadsheet form from their local database, which is called Journal. We normalized the holdings and transformed them into that sort of MARC format with the 583s to ingest into paper. One of the other things we have done, the OCLC standard does, I think, require that title changes are acknowledged, and that holdings sort of successive entry cataloging is followed, and we have gotten a number of submissions for which local cataloging rules sort of trump that, and an entire run publication history of the library's holdings were all put on a single record. So those we have, we know that we have to go back to the libraries to work with them about that. So I think that's sort of a two-pronged thing. We are working. We have developed a number of ways, I think, to put the data in the format that is needed for paper from a variety of data input formats. But the other thing is we are working really hard to make sure that the content in that format is accurate, because I think that just throws everything off when it's not.
Okay, what about how to submit holding data or add data to paper?
Well, the first thing would definitely be to contact me, and we actually, CRL actually had a recent gave a recent webinar on talking about the 583 and the different parts of that, and how we transform that, transform data into that sort of MARC kind of format to be ingested into paper. So so definitely the first step to submitting data for paper is just to contact me, and you can see my email.
Okay, I don't know if we'll be able to answer this one, but do you know if any of the paper statistic reports or gaps in conditions data has informed libraries' decisions to archive the paper or not?
I don't know about the specific statistic pages that are on the the paper site. I do know that one CRL member was using a collection comparison report that she requested for doing some specific local management of their collection. I know that they couldn't. She couldn't be too specific about what she couldn't share the data that she was using, but I know that she merged the data that we had in the collection comparison report with local use data and circulation data, and found it very valuable. Now, what that actually meant for title by title decisions, I don't know. But I think as more people use that information and are willing to share it, I think if not publicly, at least sort of one-on-one in conversation, we certainly all will be better off.
Okay, and last question: can libraries that belong to a program but are not contributors, can they get a collection comparison report?
I'm sorry. What did we say?
Can libraries that belong to a program but are not contributors, can they get a collection comparison report?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So if you're a part of a program, but you have not contributed data, I mean, the important thing is that your program has contributed, and so you definitely can request the comparison report, and hopefully that may help you have data to contribute. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Amy. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. That was wonderful participation, and props to Amy for able to answer all those questions on the fly. That's pretty impressive. I want to thank everybody again for joining us today, and I just want to mention a couple of upcoming events. We have another webinar coming up in June. It's kind of our general webinar on CRL collections and services. If you are new to CRL, or if you've been in a member institution for a while and you just need a refresher, this is a great webinar to attend, to remind yourself, your staff, of all the amazing benefits that come to you as a CRL member. We also have our annual meeting coming up. It's here in Chicago this year on April 24th and 25th later this month, that will be focused on government data. When you log off from this event, you are going to see a SurveyMonkey survey that's going to pop up. Please take a moment to fill it out. It really helps us to get your feedback on these events as we continue to refine our webinar program. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel if you want to review it again or share with colleagues. We're on Twitter now. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook. You can find out about these events in our email newsletter that goes out every few weeks called CRL Connect. You can sign up for that on our website and also take a look at other events coming up. Thank you again for joining us today, and have a wonderful afternoon.